Where's the funny part?
Yeah.
The funny part.
Didn't get to laugh again.
Didn't get to laugh.
I laughed.
She laughed.
Yeah, but don't say it.
No, don't say it.
Don't say it.
I'm relating with my cigarette. That's the work of art.
I'm going to relate with your cigarette in a second, too. I'll do the violent work of art.
What? Don't.
You give me one, Margaret?
What?
Oh, see, there you're a pair. Now you're above the.
I'm unguilting you. I'm joining you in your.
Pretty good for an asthmatic thing.
So, how many artists are there here? You write about it.
I disagree with you. I think a good piece of art has a soul just like a human does, and that it doesn't need anyone. I don't.
Yeah, but
It's, the things that you say are absolutely true, but how much of it is to do with the fact that the art market, just labels and brands, and they are the one who set up all the perceptions that we have about art.
And criteria.
Yeah.
I kept
make
thinking
it expensive, and make it, that it has to have a name, and that it has to sort of hark back to something that's been going on since Italy in the 14th century or something like that.
I kept thinking about the Voice of Fire as you were talking, using that as an analogy. Like it's.
I don't know that Voice of Fire.
Barnett Newman.
Bought by the National Gallery
For 1.5 million or something. And it's basically 3 stripes of color.
Yeah.
And when the gallery bought it, there was outrage from all across Canada. People saying, "Oh, I could have made that."
Yeah.
People not getting a connection, obviously not getting a connection with the work of art.
But you still make it yourself, even if some people don't relate to what you do all the time. I don't know.
Right.
I mean, for me, in regards to what Lynn said, is that, but why I say, it's why I bring this up is because then for me it should be a choice. I know the art market is there, but it should be a choice of either sticking with it, and then if you stick with it, then what do you do with it? As opposed to just passively, never even once thinking about it. So that's more or less why I kind of bring this up. And also what kind of goes along with that is that the thing about Barnett Newman, or people not understanding, is for me the whole problem in the art network, if I can say, has nothing to do with art, but has to do with education. And which is why I bring this concept of education. It's for me, as long as, like I say, we are taught by little squares and to fit everything, then people's experience, they will come towards a work of art and expect to understand in the same way they know when to stop at a red light and when to step on the gas. But personally, for me, that's why I kind of end up, I say that for me has nothing to do with art. For me, the experience of art is an experience, it's a relationship. So that, because of that, then there's this ghetto of artists, or that we are pushed aside, or we're not, how is that important for people to relate to, mass is a big word, but to a general public? I mean, is it nice to stay in an art ghetto and make money out of it? Or is it actually for me, it would be more interesting to actually broaden my experience to a broader public than just to, make my money and run kind of attitude. I find maybe in relation to that, in my first lecture, I don't know if I said it then, but when I say that for me, as soon as an artist brings his work in a public space, then his work, as soon as he brings it out of the studio, then his work has to do with communication. Because if he doesn't want to communicate, he might as well keep it in the studio. But what's the point of communication if you're not making sure the other person is going to relate to it or understand it? For me, that's a bit of a kind of a heritage of an attitude, like, oh, I'm myself alone in my studio, let me alone, I do what I want. And if you don't understand, it's your problem. For me, as soon as the artist brings it into the public, he, in a way, is taking a responsibility of wanting to relate to people. Or don't you find that?
Yeah, I agree. No, that's probably true.
Probably.
How is it different for you then when you're making art in a public space? I mean, does that automatically mean that right off the bat you're trying to communicate? I mean, you're in residence now. Your studio isn't a private space. Your studio is a public space.
For me, it is. I mean, even before right off the bat, that my work has to do. It's not has to do, but communication is an integral part of my work. If I didn't feel that I wanted to talk to people through my images, let's say, I just wouldn't bring it to them.
And is your art making does your art making have some things about it that are about breaking away from these 8 conventions? Was it 8?
Well, 8 or 9, yeah, conventions. Well, I think so. Okay, like, for example, I give these lectures. So for me, these lectures is part of this event. So for me, the lectures is a step to try to, I find, I don't know, it's like, for me it's natural that I should have a talk at my opening or, a slideshow or something like that. And different galleries, well, not that I've shown so much, but, when I started to show more as a solo artist, I was surprised to hear that few people did that. Why not? I don't see. It's like there's another mythology which I find funny is that people are afraid of texts often. So it's like they don't want to talk about their work, or I would see. Let's say not that maybe I will do it myself one day. I don't know, but I don't see why you wouldn't have an artwork and then a small text beside it to go with it. People say, well, it takes the magic away. It's going to destroy the work or things like that. But if my experience about that is that look how many books are on Van Gogh or on Rembrandt or all these famous artists. And even from a shitty representation, there's still something that comes through. And so for centuries we've read so much about Picasso or Rembrandt. It doesn't matter. As soon as we see the work, there's something happening there. So for me, that's another, again, there's this kind of scared attitude about talking about your work or having a text beside your work.
I think also sometimes if you do a work and you don't understand it yourself, you can't very well talk about it. You happen to do it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you understand why you did it or where it came from. So how can you talk about it to the public?
Well,
but there's the whole mystique of doing a work of art anyway, and it's sort of when John Ruskin took Whistler to court, or no, Whistler took John Ruskin to court to sue him for libel because about what he said about looked like a paint pot had been thrown out of campus or whatever. And they found out that that work of art had only taken them something like 6 hours to make to complete the work of art. And it was because it didn't take, weeks and days and months and whatever. It was seen as being less important, and so artists make a work of art that only takes 20 minutes or something. And people find out about it. Then I think our perception is that it's not as important because it was obviously so easy for that person to do that, and it was like I'll stop and whatever.
Or you see it in the prices of photos, the prices of print, as opposed to a unique, like a drawing, a painting, or a sculpture.
What did Dali do? Did he sign blank pieces of paper or something?
Well,
just before he died, like hundreds of sheets of paper.
That's far before he died. He shipped them off to an art school, and so that people had materials to work on. And the only condition was that they were shipped back, and then he sold them as his own work.
Oh, okay. Because there's apparently still like these blank pieces of paper with his signature on them floating around that are now being sent, sold off, either with just a piece of paper with his name on it, or else that people are reprinting things on it and selling them for astronomical prices. So that there's always so many ways to discount the whole art market.
Well, I think what the point you brought up, Margaret, was also a bit, again, for me, it's part of this mystique that our work of art must be understood. Like, if we look at the society and what are the positive recommended behavior, you have to be strong, you have to be self-assertive, you have to be in control. So, not knowing, which I think is basically life, because I think if your life is about only knowing, you'll get a pretty boring life. I mean, everything is set down. So, I think you're actually making a nice point, because I think this not knowing, but still able to make it, is what, it's about risk-taking, and it's about life in itself. But that is regarded as dirty or as bad. It's bad to say, I don't know. I could imagine having, like you say, you don't know what it's about, and that's fine. But that experience is again part of the making of it. It's like I don't see anything wrong about it. But given a structured society which likes to have everything totally defined, they would call it wrong. But if we take that away, then not knowing is also very positive. Then it's also an experience you can share. Risk-taking.
I think they'd also call it amateur. They'd label it amateur if the artist couldn't explain what they do.
Yeah. They disqualify it because it's not allowed not to know. You have to know.
Right.
It's again another one if we talk about the market again, because that's another reality. Like the prices of a print as opposed to a sculpture or painting. But there's also that an artist cannot change style. It's a boo-boo. You must always do the same thing. And for that I have a kind of funny, sad example. It was this big woman American artist living in Holland, Jo Bear. was a minimalist of the 60s, kind of silhouette type of paintings. And you know, she used to be quite big, and like she says, if she needs any money, she just has to go take any of her work in the storage, and she gets $50,000, you know, just like that, no problem. But then in the mid-70s, she just changed totally that, and she went back into a kind of figuration, a kind of a mythology back to figurative, which actually a lot of people are doing now. And everybody was mad against her. Dealer was mad. You know, she became taboo. Nobody touched her anymore. She could still sell high price her old work, but the new work, you know, she had even problems showing it. And the twist about that is that her son is Josh Baer, who has a Josh Baer gallery in New York, and even him didn't want to touch her work. Because, you know, it's like, you're not allowed to do that. So that again is also, and that's something that personally also played a lot with me. Now I make installation, which is multimedia in itself, but in my slide presentation, you saw all the different activities of means of expressions I have. And that has always been looked down, since it was very bad, just because I didn't know what I was doing. So that again is another ball and chain about, you know, you have to think twice if you're busy with the art market, if you want to change style or not.
It seems to work. It seemed to have worked for Harold Town. Having different Harold Town.
I gotta go to make downstairs.
I know the name, the Canadian guy.
Yeah, he just died recently. He had a lot of different styles and techniques. I mean, he did everything.
He changed his style.
Yeah. Yeah, he did get away with it.
I mean, for me, that's why I think one of my artists that I really, how can I say, love a lot is Picasso. Because he just changed all the time. He never really changed. And then, for me, you have the scary side of being an artist, which people like Munch, for example, or Jones, as we see now, or James Ensor. Who for basically 10, 15 years was quite amazing, strong, and I always thought he died then, but he didn't. He just lived on, but he just never progressed. He never renewed himself.
Because it's equally like the people who change so many times, like are like almost laughed at. But then the ones who like never, and I always talk about the 19th century, that's all I know about really, but like the people who painted with the Pre-Raphaelites really late, like they came in really late, like 1880s, 1890s, but still, you know, during by the time of the First World War, like they're still painting in the Pre-Raphaelite style, and it's like first of all, when they started, like at the turn of the century or whatever, it had already been like 50. It was already 50 years old, and it was just so contrived by that time. So it's, you know, like they're like, you know, they must have sold because there must have still been an audience, but you just feel sort of sad for them that they, you know, it's like unfortunate they just didn't catch on with any of the really exciting things that were happening at the same time, and they just, you know, it's like.
What stay in the security or just formula or stagnate.
And we sort of denigrate those people too, almost to the same extent as we do the ones who, you know, change, trying to find what they want to do. And they're probably actually the more adventurous ones. The ones who keep changing to look for, unless they're like Kenny Rogers and they're just like looking for something that sells, you know.
I find it as someone who makes art, I mean, I would hate to think that I was joining on to something that was really exciting that was going on there.
Yeah.
I mean, what if you were one of those painters that came in at the end and that's what your passion and how you wanted to paint was?
Yeah, I suppose that's,
I mean, just to, these really exciting things are going on, and to slip into that.
Yeah.
What's the reality?
Exactly,
There's no reality of that.
Yeah, you're right, because it is. It's just, we just basically have to accept what people are doing and feel that they're getting something out of it.
And when I find that I make really huge jumps in my work, where all of a sudden I'm doing something totally different that I wasn't doing before, I find it a confusing element that eventually I somewhat understand, and then it jumps again anyway. So I don't really get a chance to really even slow down to sort it out. And when you talked about the work that you don't understand, I mean, well, I've been sitting in a body of work, producing a body of work, and sitting in the amongst of all the thoughts that are going on in that body, and all of a sudden I understood what 2 bodies of work ago was about. I mean, I rambled like hell when I was producing that work about what it was about, and what I thought it was about, and what I was trying to do with it. And all of a sudden I went to this and went in, and I'm thinking, well, that wasn't about that at all. But I believe back when I was saying that this work was all about this, that maybe it was all about that.
Yeah. You've had to give yourself some distance.
And I mean, for me to even talk about distance from my work is hilarious, because it's been, I'm a baby as far as being an art maker goes, right? So it's, who's to say I've had any distance from any of it yet.
One thing I question though, and this is something I want to bring up, because you mentioned it before in one of your lectures, that more and more you want to get into video. And I haven't seen many, I've only seen a few, but I've seen them here. And after about 10 seconds.
Oh, I agree.
I am bored out of my mind. I've had enough. And it's a piece of art, whether it's sculpture or something hanging on the wall, a person can stop and look and keep going. With video, you're stuck. You're there. And it's not like a Hollywood film. It's not the same thing at all. Because I think Hollywood films are more targeted to markets, or there's a certain formula, they're predictable, they follow certain standards, so you're already set up to enjoy it or not enjoy it or whatever. But with video, as in painting or anything else, it's so highly personal that after a while I find it's just the artist's ego is overwhelming, you know? But I don't know why that is.
I don't think it has to do with the fact that it's so personal. I think it has to do with the fact that there's not been a video artist yet who's actually made something that challenges the medium. They're caught in between that, I want to make a Hollywood film, but I don't want it to be a Hollywood film, I want it to be deep. So you get all this. I mean, I think as a viewer looking at video art, it's still a different situation, because it's not about all the things that we're used to thinking about looking at art. I mean, it's more about a communication and a message, because it's ongoing. I mean, it's going to talk to you more.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen on a personal basis any video that I would actually find challenges the medium and works at the same time works with the medium.
Well, I was fortunate in Europe to see a kind of small retrospective of Nam June Paik. Yeah, and before I saw his work, he makes these days he makes robots out of old TVs with videos in them. Where did I see one of his work? Oh, it's Detroit. It's far. Anyways, he was working with John Cage in the 60s, performance and video, and anyway, if you ever get a chance, for me, he's the one who made me appreciate that video can be an art form, can be a strong, because he really kind of takes it apart totally.
Well, it's not that I don't think it can be an art form, I've just not seen any that actually I...
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Oh, I agree. I think the problem with video is the same as maybe when photography was introduced. It's like, with photo, you didn't need to be a painter. Click, it's done. Art, instant art. It's like, as soon as you make performance, the first thing you do is you take your clothes off. And as soon as you make video, half the time, the first thing you do is you take your clothes off also. So there's this kind of, because it's instant, it permits you to do things uncrafted, unresolved, it's just kind of spitting right out on the canvas, you could say. I do have to say that maybe the old painters were stuck into very strict structure about imagery and stuff like that, but they had to learn how to paint. And it's like one of the Zen thingies that say like the preparation is as important as doing what you do. And I think the skill of learning how to paint is one way you fall in love with your medium, and one way that you will respect it to a certain point. And I think video in that way is too young, and it's too instantaneous. You don't need to have any mental, physical, or any kind of skills to manipulate the video.
But also, when you said that, I was thinking of specific scenes. We've all seen specific scenes in movies that we're no longer looking at what's happening in the scene, we're looking at how it was shot, and we're amazed. Because, you know, like a 2-second scene can be so artistic. Just the camera angle, whatever.
I think, that's for me is one of the major problems with video, is that, like I say, art is about communication, and I think it's quite not thought about that the attention span of people is about, I don't know, 5 seconds long.
15 minutes, I think, or something.
Minutes? Attention span of people?
Yeah,
No, I think it's 5 seconds long. Like, you look at something, and if it doesn't grab you, you're gone. That's it. And for me, that's what happens with video. I did one video so far, and my experience is that, and it's 8 minutes long, and people had the ball with it. It was funny. And personally, when I say...
Maybe that needs to be one of your other misconceptions.
Oh, yeah.
Is that
art shouldn't be funny?
Art can't be funny.
Art can be... Well, I talked about it, about ceramics. Yeah, art should be serious. But you can still get away with it if you're a good painter. Or a good sculptor.
It's nice
I have to be really honest, I can't bring to mind funny art.
Funny art?
You need to have it, but it's...
No, not funny art, it's funny art.
You need to have
sense of humor.
I mean, I think it's one of them.
That's identical.
And I don't.
What?
And I don't.
You don't what?
Have a sense of humor?
Yes, you do have a sense of humor.
I mean, I think that it is probably, should be one of your bits as well, because I just don't know funny art.
You don't know about people who made funny art.
I've looked at a hell of a lot of art. I've looked at more art than I've read anything, and I can't bring a piece to mind that's
funny.
funny.
It doesn't have to be like comic art that makes you like that makes you
Laugh
laugh
out
at it. But I think that the art making process and the artist has to have a sense of humor about, to a certain extent, about what they're doing, so it's not so deadly serious that. I can't think of an example, but
Picasso's
is
paintings
funny.
on his dishes are pretty
And James Ensor has some funny caricature.
Caricatures, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Jesus coming to
but
process.
even so, just the whole process of making the art can't be so deadly serious that you don't have a sense of humor.
Mendelssohn Joe.
Well, I mean, I've dealt with ceramics before, and in ceramics, there's a lot of humor. So for me, then I can conceive of it quite easily, but maybe that's because I have that.
I'm not saying that I can't conceive of it.
No, no,
because
but you're just looking what
I'm
you have
just saying that
seen.
it doesn't fall into what's considered art. When it starts to be funny, it's not.
Well, there's William Wegman, photographer who works with his dogs in the next video with his dog, Max Ernst.
His dog's name Max Ernst?
Yeah.
You see, I don't know of that work, and pull anything that's historical. Pull anything that's historical.
No, he's still alive. He's making bad videos now. He's lost his touch. Panamarenko, yeah, he's a Belgian guy.
See, I just don't think if you even back up into. I mean, we can all pull obscurities that answer every one of the questions. Oh, yes, well, this is maybe here it is here though. But I think in terms that are constantly looked at,
there's not a lot.
No.
I mean, I remember when I saw your slides of the tools in the bed, and the words that you were saying, and about funny art, and more than anything, what I remember was Dominic in the back corner losing himself consistently, like he just couldn't hold on, and trying, and it was funny for him. I mean, that particular piece wasn't funny for me, but you were so right that it just lessened it as being art. I mean, people just didn't take it as being art.
I saw the throng of chairs as being really funny. That's the one that made me laugh.
Throng of chairs?
Yeah,
the chair show.
The flock of chairs.
Oh, when everybody was...
Yeah,
the
you
one-
yeah.
And then all
the
the
painting
chairs.
of all these chairs.
And that just struck me as very funny. I don't know if it was intended to be, but it did.
to laugh at very odd places. I mean, that's what I like about Dom. One of the things. I still wonder when you say all of the things that you say, why it is that you put work in galleries and why it is that you make work.
Well,
because your thoughts sound on the outside to be about some sort of non-acceptance of all of that, yet you still do it.
And okay. I for one don't see a contradiction.
Maybe you don't.
I'm not like I said. For me, what the point is to bring these for me exist, and the point for me is to bring them to awareness, so that at least you have a choice of working with them or not. I find that most of the time, if you don't know them, you don't even have a choice, and then you don't know how to manipulate that choice. Like for me, giving lecture is one part of it. Another point is that there's I don't know, one of these so many expressions, but like if you can beat them, join them. But not necessarily what I want to say, but you will have much more effect making a change from within the system than from outside the system. To be an outsider, that's a very easy. You say, not for me. But actually, when you do that, you're actually playing in the hands of that system. Because the winos and the people who have no money in the street exist because of how this society is built. They're not a contradiction. We create our poors. And we support our poors. So it's not a contradiction. So for me, it would be bad to just take the position of the anarchist or marginal. Because for me, that doesn't do anything. And if I do that, I actually strengthen the system. Because that's the position they have created for me. So I think that it's more interesting to play within the system, and through discussions like this, through the lectures I give, and through contact with people, see what is the possibility.
But then you also show a slide of a chair on the ceiling where you're totally not accepting the system.
No, I'm not saying. I'm not saying. No, I'm not totally not accepting it because I'm still here and I'm still in the art gallery. I'm still showing it. The point that I'm actually, if you noticed, you know, like a case in point, there was the chair on the ground and there was the chair on the ceiling. Both were there. So actually, I'm saying is, and that's a bit again, the discussion a bit we had in Denise' home. Like I'm talking about the plurality, and I don't see it that I have to choose one position.
So maybe my question to you is then, why don't you also produce whatever it is that you want to call what it is that you produce, and not put it in gallery?
Okay, because
as well as what you produce and
well,
putting it in a gallery.
This is an ongoing process, and doing these lectures is one way for me to attempt different ways. Also, my first example of the Malevich Italian guy whose things get burned is that, okay, I can go do some street theater, can make an installation with no publicity whatsoever, but by definition of these things, it doesn't exist. So then I will be making things that don't exist. I know it's a contradiction, but for me it's a reality. It's like, for now, there's this system which decide what exists and what not exists. So for me to work outside of there, what I will make will not exist. So I have to find, and I don't say I have a solution. I think if I have a solution, my life would be boring because then I would know my solution. But I see it as an attempt to become aware of what are the limitations and why do I have to show in places like this. And given that as a starting point, because if I don't use that,